Hey, Foot Clan. Today's sponsor is footballhall.com. You've heard us talk about them before, and this is one of my favorite things right now. It is a monthly subscription box for amazing football gear. You get gear and different things like puzzles and statues and figurines and bobbleheads from your hometown team, and you get some from the NFL, and you get exclusives inside this deal. It's $75 worth of gear for $29.99, and you can check it out over at the website, footballhall.com. Use our promo code BALLERS5 to check it out.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Mike said we're not feeling thin today.
No, I am not.
You're not feeling thin?
No, pizza and wings. It's sitting heavy. It's sitting heavy with me right now.
Do you have what it takes to do a show?
Oh, always.
All right.
I will always push through. I will always bring the energy. But my physical appearance may be getting slower and slower.
All right, and larger and larger.
My mouth continues to move at rapid rates, though.
You do have a shirt on that no one on the podcast side can see, but it has pizza on the actual. It is a Ninja Turtle shirt.
It is a Ninja Turtle shirt.
All right.
It is I guess a modern patterned Ninja Turtle shirt.
It's pretty nice. You can check it out on YouTube.
The
Welcome.
wife got it for me.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers. Andy Holloway here with Jason Moore.
How's it going, everybody?
You're still dealing with the pizza as well.
Yeah, and I will be through the whole show. Unlike Mike, I will not be able to push through. I'm going to be bringing it really lousy here today.
Really lousy.
So just ignore everything I say.
The Fantasy Hitman, we're all in studio today. We're talking fantasy football as usual. I got a good, quick question for everybody today. We're going to talk about the Steelers wide receivers in the quick questions, so stay tuned for that. Today's show is a good one. We've got Pat Mayo from the Fantasy Sports Network joining us for a segment. We also are going to be breaking out our tiers. We have our rankings, the premium rankings. You can see the rankings on the website, but you can see the tiers inside the Ultimate Draft Kit. And so we're going to be breaking out those tiers on the show today. I want to get essentially feedback from you guys, Jason, Mike, as I reveal these guys in the different tiers. Your thoughts on how it changes between scoring systems, your thoughts on which guys kind of stand apart, because tiering players is a great way to go into your draft and be able to decide between positions. And so we're going to go over that today, going to walk through our tiers for the first time, going to have Pat Mayo on, and we got some fantasy news for you as well. You can connect with us on jointhefoot.com. That's our fantasy football community. That's where we have an extra episode every week. We got exclusive content, giveaways, things like that. You can follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We're very active. Mike is very active on Twitter.
Extremely.
So hyperactive.
I'm like Sonic the Hedgehog, just buzzsawing through Robotnik's machines, answering questions, giving feedback, giving my hot Mario Kart takes.
Well, you know how active Mike is because we have our own accounts. We all have our own accounts. We have a shared account. We have the FF Ballers at the FF Ballers on Twitter. And, if Mike beats me to logging in on there, he clears the notifications out.
That's right.
And I don't see a lot of notifications half the time.
Like a boss.
Because he clears them out. So Mike's all up in the Twitter at the FF Ballers. All up in the Twitter. If you have a question for us, you want to check out our website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Go to the Submit a Question button. We answer thousands of questions every year. That's why we do this show. We like answering questions for your team and your situation, your trades, your dynasty, your keeper leagues, everything you got going on, your draft questions, commissioner questions, those type of things. And I do have one brief announcement. We have given away one of the podcast award giveaways already. Mike, why don't you tell everybody about that?
Well, we gave it away this time we picked a winner from the Twitter for all the people who have been supporting us through podcast awards. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, we were nominated for 2 podcast awards, the Best Sports and the People's Choice, and we've been having listeners and supporters of the show. You're jumping on the website every single day, and you vote for us, and then you take a screenshot of your verification from the email, and then you tweet it at us, or however you want to get it to us, with the hashtag FootClanVote. And we had a special bonus giveaway, which was a signed Jordan Reed mini helmet. And a lucky man came away with that one, and we are because the votes are still going.
Yeah, this is the last. This is the last.
This is
podcast
the final push.
that you will hear us say to you. Please go vote for us on podcastawards.com. This is it. It's all over, and this is our last chance, and we're worried.
Sound the horn. Foot Clan assemble. This is your last opportunity. Bring home the title for us. Help us get that hashtag Foot Clan title for the show. We appreciate everybody that's done it so much that we're not only giving away an autographed Left Bell jersey, we are now adding
whoa. And a listener league spot.
And a listener league spot.
A spot in the exclusive listener league.
And a bunch of signed photos and stickers and gizmos.
Yes. Humpback whales.
And gadgets.
3 or 4 humpback whales we're giving away.
Shamu. We got the rights for Shamu.
I don't know how we did that.
We are adding another jersey.
We're actually adding another jersey.
Yep.
And that is T.Y. Hilton.
Who?
I almost said Ty. I'm like
Hilton.
reading it. No. T.Y. Hilton autographed jersey. We're adding it. If you want to be included with that, we're basically saying everybody who votes from Thursday through Sunday is in on that giveaway.
Well, include
and use the hashtag TY13
and hashtag Foot Clan vote because those entries still count for the big things.
This is so complicated.
I know, but we're just trying to keep it away.
If you can't keep up, just go to podcastawards.com and vote for us.
Yeah,
that's it.
Here you go.
All right, let's get the quick question. The quick question is this: I was looking up some stats, some splits today, and I wanted to see how Antonio Brown performed with Marcus Wheaton and with Martavis Bryant. And what I wanted to look at is I looked at Antonio Brown in games over the last 2 years when Marcus Wheaton had 50 or more yards. And Antonio Brown was insanely more productive when Wheaton had 50 or more yards, to the tune of 16, basically a touchdown a game average. So 16 touchdowns a season, over 2,000-yard pace whenever Wheaton had 50 or more. And then I looked at Martavis, and I said, well, how did he do when Martavis had 50 or more? Same pace. So when Martavis or Wheaton had 50 or more yards on the other side, Brown basically averaged 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns.
Basically, when the Steelers were rolling,
Brown is better.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense.
Well, you could say that. But there is a perception, right, where if he's getting all the targets and all the yards and nobody else is performing around him, that must be better. Julio Jones has been in that boat. Sure. It's not better.
Yeah, the real question here is Marcus Wheaton, I think.
Okay, so that's what I want to bring that up. I know Mike has opinions on Wheaton. I tend to think that Wheaton is pretty viable. I think the two guys across the table from me disagree with each other. So why don't you talk?
We do.
Well, we
disagree.
Yeah. I thought we all kind of disagreed. Or are you with Andy on Team Wheaton?
We'll see. Give your take, and then I'll spit some fire in your face.
All right.
Should I hit?
Are we doing
we can make it official.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Wow.
Fantasy Face-Off.
I was not prepared for a full-on face-off, but I will give
That's
my.
why it's even better.
I will give my take. Here's the deal, Foot Clan. If you look at Marcus Wheaton, he was given a spectacular opportunity to seize the wide receiver 2 position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Martavis Bryant was suspended for 4 games, and then he had that weird, is he injured, is he not injured, but he didn't play. So he missed 5 games. And so you think, okay, well, Wheaton's going to get production. But the fact of the matter is Marcus Wheaton was better. He was almost 3 points better per game when Martavis Bryant played, which to me says that Marcus Wheaton is not a true number 2. He is what he is at this point. He's coming into the 4th year of his career. So it would, at this point, it would shock me. And I think here is the kind of the hot take that might surprise people, and that I believe my esteemed colleague over here finds a disgusting take.
Well, I know where you're going now.
Yeah. Well, I'll start it off with, I like Sammy Coates
as do I
as the potential flyer for the Steelers much more than Marcus Wheaton. Where I get nuts, if you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. Look at the splits last year, smaller sample size, but like I said, Marcus Wheaton's points went down when Martavis Bryant's was not in the game. When Martavis Bryant was not in the game, you know who was actually viable? Darius Hayward-Bay, the guy they signed immediately during the offseason when they knew that Martavis Bryant was going to be suspended. His production actually goes way, way, way up in the games that Martavis Bryant did not play.
All right, the floor is Jason's.
Okay, so here's what I think. I like Sammy Coates as well. I definitely like Sammy Coates a lot more than Darius Hayward-Bay, and I think he's got a viable opportunity here to come in, be a good player. You know, the Pittsburgh, the Steelers, they don't like using their rookie wide receivers, but then they kind of unleash them. So Coates, I'm all about. But Wheaton, I don't think Wheaton stinks. Beforehand, we had a conversation in here about whether Wheaton was good enough or not. He's coming into his 4th year. He had the opportunity, and there's this perception that he stinks because in the beginning of last year, when he had that opportunity as the number 2, you're right, Mike, he wasn't that good. But here's how Marcus Wheaton finished the year. Okay, so they had a Week 11 bye, and from 12 to 17, which is a good chunk of that season, he went from before the bye, getting about 3 targets a game to getting almost 8 targets a game. 4.67 receptions per game, 0.6 touchdowns per game, 79 yards per game. Do you want to know, Mike? Mike, do you want to know where he ranked in from weeks 12 to 17, the last 5 weeks of the year?
I don't think you do, Mike.
Oh no, I would like to hear this.
Well, let's take a guess.
Okay.
Where do you think?
I'll put him in the wide receiver 2 range.
Ooh, I did not think you would do that. Well, you would be wrong because he was a wide receiver 1. He was the 12th ranked wide receiver from weeks 12 on. Now he's coming into another opportunity. I just don't think a guy who was able to put up those kind of numbers for that chunk of a season with Big Ben is going to come into an opportunity and then all of a sudden go, no, I don't know how to play football.
All right, I'm going to call it. I'm calling it. The fantasy face-off's over. I'm going to share my thoughts on this.
I have one quick point.
Oh, so you need a counterpoint.
Well, my quick counterpoint was just to talk the actual numbers for Darius Hayward-Bay. In the games where Martavis Bryant was not playing, he was averaging about 10 PPR points a game as opposed to 2.4.
Those are those PPR points of the week?
Yeah.
All right,
and Hayward missed a bunch of games last year. So those games when Marcus Wheaton was so great, guess who was not playing?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Hayward-Bay.
Okay,
all right,
swap out Hayward-Bay and Martavis.
Silence.
Okay.
We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to share what I've learned. Here's what I've learned. The Steelers are worse without Martavis Bryant. Antonio Brown's numbers were better. Marcus Wheaton's numbers were better. Big Ben's numbers were better. They averaged 7 points more as a team with Martavis Bryant. So lesson number 1 before I rule on this is that the Steelers' offense, especially how you view Big Ben, you need to temper that a little bit. You need to be measured. Okay? Number 2. Here's point number 2. You don't have to grab the bull by the horns. It's not an all or nothing with Marcus Wheaton. Okay? He doesn't have to have dominated the league to be okay. You can have a cap and still be a good receiver. That's how I view Marcus Wheaton. He is capped. He will never be elite. But he might still be valuable for your fantasy team. I'm going to give it to Jason.
Yeah.
I'm giving the fantasy football to Jason. And now I'm biased. I like Marcus Wheaton.
That wasn't even a fair competition.
I don't
It was
mind.
already Wheaton.
I don't mind. I don't need a fair fight.
Here's the thing. For our listeners, it's better that Marcus Wheaton wins that. Jason wins that. Because Wheaton ended the year strong. He's got an opportunity, and I think it is foolhardy to jump all over Sammy Coates or Darius Hayward-Bay to start the season.
Well, and the reason why is because Marcus Wheaton isn't going to cost you much.
Exactly.
It's not like, he had this strong
If he
season.
rises up, I will be all over Coates.
Right.
I will never touch Darius Hayward-Bay because Darius Hayward-Bay is capped with 2 bad hands.
Sure. My only point for Hayward-Bay was just I would rather pay the price for Hayward-Bay, which is free, than pay the what is Wheaton, like an eighth or ninth round
He's
pick?
ninth. He's not even in the top 100 players right now.
That's all my point was for Hayward-Bay.
Look, that's a great discussion. Let's go ahead and get into the news. We actually have some about Coates, so let's do that.
News and notes from around the league.
I'm parched over here from the pizza. I got the dry mouth.
All right, let's talk about offensive coordinator Todd Haley. Believe it or not, a coach for the team in which this player plays says that Sammy Coates has had a really good offseason. Tremendous is the word he used.
It's just good to hear because Coates, as far as talking about physical talents and gifts, Sammy Coates is above Marcus Wheaton.
He's going to be asked to do what Martavis did and extend the defense.
Right. So I like taking a flyer on Coates in drafts.
All right, Giovani Bernard signs a 3-year, $15.5 million extension.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I love Michael Keaton. Oh, come on.
No, that was exactly what I was going to say is good for you, Gio. I mean, running backs, they don't make that much money anymore, and here you get a $15 million 3-year deal when you're not the first and second down starter, but he is worth it. He's valuable. He's good in the run game, the pass game, the pass protection. Love Giovani Bernard.
The Jeremy Hill dynasty owners just shed a couple tears.
All right.
So I feel for you out there. I pour one out.
There's a report yesterday saying that Miami Herald said that the Dolphins are not pursuing Arian Foster.
Yeah, and the report goes on to say they would only become interested in Foster if there are injuries or their running backs suck.
Also included in the report is that my boy, Kenyon Drake, is looking good. But so is Jay Ajayi.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking good.
And I'm gonna get through 2 more pieces of news really fast before we get into the tiers. Doug Peterson said Rueben Randle has made an impact at OTAs. We know that Jordan Mathews has not made an impact on the outside. So you're talking Nelson Aguilar, Rueben Randle probably on the outside, and then you got Jordan Mathews on the inside. Very interesting. Randle is probably undervalued.
Yes, at this point he will be.
And
Mathews could be overvalued.
Yeah.
If they start running too wide and they're not running 3 out there, I mean Mathews is going to lose a bunch of snaps.
Yep. And then the Cardinals, for those fearful in the David Johnson watch, scared maybe to jump on board with ourselves or Jake Seeley, many of the others that have DJ so high. The website came out with a thing today that said that he's expected to get the lion's share of the work. This is another thing where they came out. Bruce Arians talked about Andre Ellington saying he's going to get a few carries here and there. We know David Johnson, the impact he makes. Chris Johnson will spell him. I think if the Cardinals get ahead by a lot, Chris Johnson's the perfect guy to bring in and keep David Johnson healthy. But that's not bad for fantasy
owners. That's like
owners.
every team, though.
Exactly.
Well, the best part about it is that the Cardinals have a very difficult schedule this year. They're going to be in games where they're going to need their running back one to produce. I think he will. We will see where David Johnson is in our tiers as we get into one of the most important things in fantasy football drafting, our tier segment. But before we do that, Foot Clan, we have got to make sure that you are on the Football Hall. Footballhall.com. It is something we have every football fan has been waiting for a long time. One of those blind subscription boxes where every month you get a ton of gear. And the Football Hall finally came around. We are all 3 subscribed to this personally. Love it. You can watch our unboxing video that we just got from our last haul. We're talking about you get like the stuff you see if you subscribe to us on YouTube, stuff you see in our studio, these McFarlanes, these awesome decorations. We got this crazy Todd Gurley bobblehead that is amazing and completely exclusive. If you want it, you can't even buy it elsewhere. Every single box comes with $75 worth of value for $29. They ask you for what team you like. You put it in. You get exclusive stuff to your team. We're talking puzzles, games, clothes, shirts, gear. It is amazing.
You got some basketball shorts the other month.
I was looking for basketball shorts.
And they appeared.
And then I got Arizona Cardinal basketball shorts. It was amazing. So here's what you do. We've got a code for you. Use Ballers5 when you go to Football Hall. That's HAUL.com. Go to footballhall.com. Put in Ballers5. Sign up and then send us pictures of your sweet swag.
It's really cool. We like it a lot, and I love opening the boxes. When they get here and the kids see it, it's awesome. So, all right, let's talk about the tiers, guys. I'm going to break it out right now. We're going to start at the quarterback position. We're going to break these down. I'm going to look at 6-point quarterback tiers, okay? This is the breakdowns that we got, that we have for you. So, tier 1, we have 2 quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton alone in tier 1 in 6-point leagues. Let's talk about these 2 guys. Are they indeed in a league of their own?
Yeah, I think it's not bold at all for us to call Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton the best fantasy quarterbacks, but honestly, that's just the way I see it shaken out. If Cam Newton can continue to be to consistently give you these monster weeks, then he's in a tier nearly by himself. And Aaron Rodgers, I feel like we say this all the time because it's worth saying. Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, has finished as the quarterback 1 or 2 every season that he's been the full-time starter, except for last season. So you have 1 mulligan as opposed to a long history of him being dominant for fantasy football.
Look, Aaron Rodgers in years past has gone in the first round very commonly for fantasy football drafts because he's been a real difference maker. And I don't know that this is being talked about enough, but he's changed his diet. He's doing the Tom Brady diet.
Ooh.
He's lost some weight. He has a chip on his shoulder from last year.
What is the Tom Brady diet? I need to look into it.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous. He's like no sugar, no
bread.
Yeah, no fun. I think he's got a cookbook called No Fun. No Fun Eatery.
Abandon all fun.
I clearly do not subscribe to Tom Brady's eating habits, but I just say this. Aaron Rodgers has been consistently in his career, an absolute beast for fantasy, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. He gets his weapons back, and he hasn't been at this good of a draft value in the last couple of years because he kind of disappointed people last year. So look, if you like drafting a quarterback early, which I can tell you Aaron Rodgers will be on none of our teams because we don't like giving up that early of a pick at a different position, then it's a good year for Aaron Rodgers.
All right, let's talk about tier 2 at the quarterback position. These two guys are going in the 5th and 6th rounds, respectively. Russell Wilson, Drew Brees are tier 2 quarterbacks in 6-point leagues. Let's highlight Drew Brees right now because we all really like that value. Basically a 7th round pick into the 6th round. Drew Brees has weapons. He's got Coby Fleener coming in. Michael Thomas got drafted. You got another year under the belt for Cooks. What else is there to say about Drew Brees?
Well,
I mean, he led the league in passing again.
Yeah, he led the league in passing yards, like Andy said. And it started off poorly. I mean, he had a shoulder injury. The offense was completely discombobulated, and then he turns that into the second most completions, the second most attempts. He's a top 3 of completion percentage again. And so I love Drew Brees so much going into this fantasy football year. I feel like I just said that about somebody.
Well, I feel like you just really professed your love to him.
But because I do. Drew Brees is a guy who I am targeting. Yes, you heard me right, Foot Clan. If I can
quarterback you're targeting.
If I can get the value on Drew Brees in around the 8th round or so, I will not hesitate to draft him.
You have to take him there because if you look back, the same arguments we just made for Aaron Rodgers, he's always a top producer. I mean, you have 2011, Drew Brees was the number 2 fantasy quarterback. 2012, he's the number 1 fantasy quarterback. 2013, he's the number 2. I mean, this is what Drew Brees has done. Then he loses Jimmy Graham. He deals with an injury. He has a down year, and now he's got Coby Fleener. He's got another year with Brandon Cooks, and they pick up Michael Thomas. I think Drew Brees is a great value.
All right, let's move on to tier 3. Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, and Tom Brady is our tier 3. I'm going to save Andrew Luck. We're going to talk to Pat Mayo about Andrew Luck a little bit. Talk to me about Carson Palmer being up ahead of Brady, but they're both in that tier right now. Where are you looking to pull the trigger on a tier 3 quarterback?
Ooh, Tom Brady is actually. I'm going to start this with a question because is Tom Brady right now. Jason is factoring in the suspension, correct?
Yes, he would not be in my tier 3 personally, but in our consensus, he does end up there.
Yeah. So, and to me, I think Brady, if I know for sure that he's going to play the 16 games, he might slide into tier 2 for me. There's just so much mystery and unknown about what's going on with him.
But you'll still get a better value on Brees than Brady.
Yeah. Yes, completely. And I would take Brees over Brady. As far that's what I think about Brady. I think once I get the 10-4 all clear signal from the Brady camp, then I think he might move up to tier 2 for me.
And that's very fair. He should. But right now he's missing 30% of the games. So yeah, that's the problem.
And Carson Palmer being in this tier, it's a good one to point out because he's drafted a little later than this tier normally, but with his weapons.
He's not free anymore, though.
No, he's not.
Those were good times.
Good times last year.
Middle tier quarterbacks, which I think this tier is, these are the guys I usually avoid, honestly. I like later tier guys, and I like earlier tier guys.
Well, and again, this is where we tier them from a production standpoint, not necessarily where they go in the draft. You know, if you have a tier 3 quarterback sitting on the board in the 9th, 10th round, that's when you know to make the jump. That's the point of tiering, right? Because you see somebody that is at a level that is disproportionate to where they should go.
Yes.
Right.
In our minds, right?
Yeah, yep.
Tier 4, Eli Manning, Blake Bortles, Phillip Rivers, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. We talked about the Steelers earlier, so let's...
But guys!
Yes, voice of public opinion.
Why is Blake Bortles down in tier 4 when he's like the best young quarterback in the world?
Blake Bortles is. I think
that's something we're going to talk about today too, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we talk with Mayo on? Did we go with Bortles?
I think we did.
Recall. All right. Well, then we'll skip over Bortles for now because I want to talk about Phillip Rivers, my other quarterback target. I'm taking over the show, and I'm just professing my love for all the guys that I want on my team this year. I think if you recall when Keenan Allen was healthy, Phillip Rivers was making a push to be the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback. I see a situation where that could return. I think the offense remains very similar to what it was last year. And
Keenan Allen, big extension offer right now.
Absolutely. I think Keenan Allen will be re-signed before the year starts. I just love the potential of Phillip Rivers. And we talked about how you can get Brees a little bit later. Rivers, you can get after Brees. So I would not reach for Phillip Rivers, but you're talking the round 10 or so. That's when I'm all in on Phillip Rivers.
Now, you notice that's through tier number 4 at the quarterback position. If you go into the Ultimate Draft Kit, you can sort that by 4-point passing touchdown leagues as well. So you see Russell Wilson jumps up a tier, things like that. Worth noting that our tier 4 guys are ahead of our tier 5 guys like Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Tony Romo, Matt Stafford's in that tier number 5, and Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor. And you can see all of those on the website. We're going to move on now to the running backs. I'm going to go half point per reception tiers. Okay,
right.
Well,
So
that's what we're going to go through.
We're just going through that because it's the best scoring system, though.
Right. That's the only reason why.
This is backed by science.
Scientific studies
Half
have
point
shown.
PPR.
Well, I shot Neil, my buddy Neil. You guys know DeGrasse Tyson?
Oh, yeah.
I shot him a tweet, and I was like, hey, in your professional –
I thought you said you shot him.
No,
That's what I thought.
no.
Yeah, you shot Neil
tweet.
deGrasse Tyson?
I DM'd. We DM back and forth. Every once in a while, I
Watch
said,
your back, Neil.
A professional astrophysicist, what's the best scoring for fantasy football?
Half point?
And he went, he emoted and gifted that face.
Oh. Well,
Half
now
point.
you know.
Half point, bro.
And he's
He's really lax.
rocket ship scientist, right?
He's lax the way he talks on Twitter.
All right, Lev Bell's all alone in tier 1. Is this appropriate? Is this fair?
Absolutely.
Do we need to ask Pat Mayo about this?
We sure do.
All right, so Lev Bell sitting all alone. And look, the gap that we have in projected points in our tiers between Lev Bell and anybody else is huge. It's very large.
Between first place and second place there is 35 points.
Yikes.
That is a lot of points.
All right, so let's talk about tier 2 because that's what people want to know. Where do we break these guys up? We have David Johnson, Todd Gurley, Jamaal Charles, and Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, I like the way that they've tiered it out. I love all those guys right now. It'll be interesting for me to see if any of them I can actually get any on my team the way that I want to draft with going early on the wide receivers.
I think Jamaal Charles is a guy that's slipping later, so he's a good target if you want one of those top tier guys. You can get him. We just did we're gonna do a mock draft in a little while, and I've seen Jamaal Charles go in round 2 in mock drafts when you're drafting pretty late.
Yeah, I think Jamaal Charles, the question with him is you're coming off the ACL tear. Can he keep up the yards per carries? The red flags might drop him down in drafts, but he's Jamaal Charles. And
it's funny. That tier is like 2 seemingly safe guys, 2 seemingly risky guys. So you got David Johnson, Jamaal Charles, a little risky, Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson.
The 2 guys who don't really catch the ball.
Right.
Funny enough.
I think is that volatility or risk? Because if David Johnson and Jamaal Charles are so dependent on the passing game, do you feel like they're just more volatile than
I don't feel like they're dependent on the passing game.
Okay.
I just think that they are heavily involved where Peterson and Gurley Peterson, I think we know who he is. Gurley, maybe he could evolve into that, and there's news of him slimming up and he wants to be more involved in the passing game. I don't know if
Gurley gets more
Fisher
involved
does
in the
that.
passing game.
Well, yeah, good grief.
All right, we're going to start tier 3 with a guy that had 50 receptions in 12 games last year. Mark Ingram is the first name in tier 3. I believe he climbs up into tier 2 for our standard tiers, but he's the first guy off the board here, first guy in our tier 3. You got Lamar Miller, LaShawn McCoy, Ezekiel Elliott, Doug Martin, Eddie Lacy, and Devonta Freeman. And I definitely want to ask Pat Mayo about Ezekiel Elliott and where he belongs because a lot of people have him all over the map. He's another guy that draws the very strong opinions from different experts. And so we have to ask him about Zeke. But let's turn our attention to Doug Martin. Because Doug Martin, if you project him like last season, a very big year, and Mike, I don't know if you can grab the stats for me real quick.
I'll grab
But
them.
he had a 4.9 average. I remember that.
I'm pulling him up right now.
And he was very productive. But now you're dropping him into tier 3, and I think there are some that would say, isn't Doug Martin worthy of tier 2?
So Doug Martin finished with 288 carries, over 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground, and then a little bit involved in the passing game, 33 receptions.
Now, we're not the only ones. I'm not saying we're the ones fading Doug Martin. His average draft position right now is in the second round.
You guys love Martin. I'm a little bit more cool.
So
on
I guess
him.
tell me why.
it comes down to I don't know who Doug Martin is. I called him the poop sandwich, I think, because he has those 2 middle years where he couldn't fight through his injuries.
It's not a very nice name. It's really not.
Well, he said he didn't like the muscle hamster.
Yeah,
so.
he's been searching for a nickname, poop sandwich.
Oh my gosh, so much work. Cover your ears, Doug.
It's not that I don't hate him by any stretch. I'm not really sure who Doug Martin is. And
Doug Martin and Eddie Lacy, they're both in this tier. Which would you draft?
I would take Eddie Lacy.
Oh my gosh.
I think I might lean that way too, but I'll tell you.
Water bet.
You can change the terms on it, but
on half-point PPR, Lacy versus
Doug Martin. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
okay.
leaving that one between you two.
I'll take it.
Here's what I do think about Doug Martin. I think he is right now becoming one of the better values at running back. I don't necessarily love Doug Martin. I don't think he'll repeat last year. If he did repeat, let's remind ourselves, right?
Exactly.
Last year, Doug Martin was the 3rd best running back. And you go, well, what scoring format? Well, that was standard. What about PPR? Full point PPR. He was the 4th.
Yep.
I mean, he was a great running back last year, signed a big contract to stay with the team. I don't see them changing that, but there's these fears like, Charles Sims was okay.
This is an easy story here, okay?
Okay.
Tier 3, we're going to tell a story in Tier 3 that you led into. Mark Ingram, hurt last year. Lamar Miller, changing teams. LaShawn McCoy, hurt last year. Ezekiel Elliott,
brand new.
Rookie. Eddie Lacy, disappointment last year. Devonta Freeman and Doug Martin, the only 2 guys that performed great last year. So you can't project a perfect repeat, but at least you've got 2 guys with a track record, the most recent track record that you can have.
Yeah, but
and you're projecting
sure.
Lacy to come back. You're putting more faith in Lacy to come back,
yes,
than Martin to repeat, and that's the part that I don't support.
And here's the best part.
But they're both in the same tier, and so that's why you can make that decision as a fantasy owner. Look at the tier 3s and pick a guy from that range.
Yeah, and Doug Martin is going right now, the 9th pick of the 2nd round. He's late. He's been, he might slip into the 3rd round right now. So him and Mark Ingram are presenting really good values in this tier when it comes to where you're getting them in your draft.
So you're on the clock at 2:09. You're grabbing a running back, Mark Ingram or Doug Martin.
Mark Ingram.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about Mark Ingram and Doug Martin, but I'm going to take Ingram because it's half point, and I like the reception totals. And you've got Charles Sims, who we know can do that game in Tampa. All right, tier 4 is the last one I'm going to go through here before we move on to wide receivers. This is just an overview of the tiers. I want to walk through the first one so you can see where we have them broken up. This is the separation. It's a pretty big one in our projected points between Devonta Freeman.
I would say this is where I feel like things get a little dicey.
Sure, yeah.
In tier 4.
It really drops off here. You have Thomas Rawls. And that's somebody that, strong opinions across the board. We don't know what's going on with the knee. I'm going to ask Mayo about him. Ryan Mathews. What did I say?
Knee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, his ankle. Ryan Mathews, John Stewart, Carlos Hyde, DeMarco Murray, Matt Jones, and C.J. Anderson.
Jones.
And that is the tier 4 right now.
That's a tier of death right there.
And that tier, you look at average draft position in that tier, and there's one that jumps right off the page, Thomas Rawls. He's a 2nd-round pick. Everybody else is a 4th or 5th-round pick right now in drafts. And so that's scary to me.
You got to pay the price for Thomas Rawls. And to elaborate more on what we're talking about, clearly he's not practicing right now. He's still injured. Christian Michael taking the first team snaps. Now there's reports coming out from Seahawks beat reporters that they believe in Alex Collins, 5th-round running back. They say, we like this guy. We think he's going to compete for snaps right away. Throwing CJ Prosise, eliminating the possibility of Rawls being a 3rd down back, and you have a mess. If Rawls can't come back strong in training camp or right before the season and establish dominance, then there's some trouble for Thomas Rawls.
You could end up with 3 backs there getting a
Oh, gross.
I did see a little bit of good news on Thomas Rawls.
Whoa! I haven't heard good news on him in a long time.
I saw news that he was walking through blitz pickup drills after the.
Say, did he get married?
No. Recently, he was on the field in I think their 5th practice, walking through blitz pickup.
That's
So,
good. Yeah,
I don't know.
We can't act like he's not there and not part of the team.
Sure, exactly.
So I have one question in this tier because I was doing a draft and I could not. I mean, you weren't here, Andy.
Oh,
and
man.
I was sweating bullets. I was on the clock. This was a real draft. And
he liquefied into a pool of goo. He looked like the Secret Life of Alex Mack.
I needed you, and you were gone for me. But I could
I can help you now, brother.
Yes. I appreciate it.
It's too late.
So I could not decide between Matt Jones and DeMarco Murray. This was a full-point PPR. I have Matt Jones ahead, just barely in my rankings, than DeMarco Murray, and I could not figure out what to do.
I don't know who you picked, and I would have picked DeMarco Murray.
You want to know who I picked?
Matt Jones.
Colby Fleener.
Yeah.
It was an MFL, so a lot of tight ends were off the board.
That is really funny. Okay, so these guys are back-to-back in that tier 4. So if you want to see the rest of the tiers, head over to the Ultimate Draft Kit. You can watch. We have a rundown on every single guy. So let's get into the wide receivers. Go through the first 2 or 3 tiers there. Half point per reception.
Of course.
Wide receivers. Yeah, we've already understood why. Neil deGrasse Tyson. All right, tier 1. This one should be you. If I leave a blank space on the podcast right now, I'm pretty sure all the listeners can say 3 names.
Let's say it together, everybody.
Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham
Jr. You got to get the junior in there. Junior.
OBJ. Yeah, we got those 3 guys in the tier by themselves appropriately.
But Andy.
Oh, no.
Jeez.
Don't you drop Odell Beckham down out of the tier because he's dating a Kardashian?
Oh, that is a
Yes.
very valid point.
No, I actually went on a radio show the other day, and that was the only question they asked me.
It's true.
They said that you come on and talk fantasy. I said, okay. They said we have an unorthodox question about Odell Beckham Jr. And I kind of knew we're probably heading into the Kardashian territory here, and we were. And here's what I said. I said if you want to use that as a tiebreaker, we've seen distractions like that cost players. Tony Romo was not good with Jessica Simpson. But Odell Beckham Jr.
It's just so
Odell
ludicrous.
Beckham Jr. is just too good.
Oh, it is nonsense. Nonsense to blame the girlfriend.
I'm not blaming the girl. I'm blaming the distraction that is the publicity. Every time you go into an interview, what are they asking Odell Beckham Jr.? Are they asking him about the team? Are they asking him about his personal life?
That's easy.
Every time he goes out.
If it's the same question every time, it's easy.
It's a picture. No, it's not easy. We've seen this.
We're human beings. They are human beings.
Exactly.
It makes a big difference. But the truth is,
but he's still tier 1.
there's a gap. There's a gap between him and the next guy. I am madly in love this year with A.J. Green. He's a guy that I'm getting in a lot of my leagues.
I love A.J. Green.
He leads the next tier, but there's a gap there between A.J. and Odell Beckham that is not bridged by even the whitest Kardashian.
Okay.
Oh!
You did say widest.
Hot
Yes,
takes.
it's a large bridge.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Need a wide
WIDEST. Got it. Got it. Tier 2 is, interestingly enough, has A.J. Green, Des Bryant, and DeAndre Hopkins, who all 3 have an average draft position in the first round. That's what makes the tier break so interesting. They're all late first round, but they're all still first-round picks. We also included Alshon Jeffery, Mike Evans, Allen Robinson, and Brandon Marshall in the tier 2. Now, Brandon Marshall right now, if you're drafting, to me, is the worthwhile risk. I understand. Like, I know I'm like confident that Fitzpatrick's back. But I recognize it's a risk for people right now today to draft Brandon Marshall.
You're going Indiana Jones, leap of faith.
Well,
you're after that. You're after the.
He's not going to disappear with Geno Smith, is my point. He's the kind of receiver that it doesn't matter who you are. He's not necessarily going to do what he did last year. He's probably not going to do that with Fitzpatrick. But a third-round pick for Brandon Marshall, a guy who finished number 3 in half-point leagues last year, is a great value to me in that second tier.
I agree. Right now, where he's being drafted is he's being drafted as if Geno's his quarterback. So go ahead. Draft him as if Geno's his
Marshall
quarterback.
in the third or Robinson in the second.
I'm going to take Marshall.
Top of the second, too.
Yeah, Marshall in the third for sure.
Okay. Anybody else from tier 2 you want to discuss real quick? You said you loved A.J. Green.
I do. A.J. Green.
They lost Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu.
Yep. And
he's always had 10 touchdowns.
He's going to be a beast this year.
All right. And you know what? He came out and he was saying he knows it's on his shoulder. Like
good.
The passing game.
Yeah. Good.
And then Eifert's like, whoo. Good.
I think Eifert was like, ow.
Yeah, that's true. All right, tier 3, big extension guy, Keenan Allen. He's got one coming. Good for him.
Yes.
Because he's not prototypical. Keenan Allen's not the prototypical big, receiver. He's just better.
Or big, really fast.
You know who he reminds me of is what Antonio Brown's done with his career, which is take some of the less measurable, values and talents, like some separation.
Intangibles,
you'd call it, but they're tangible. The separation's tangible. the breaks, the reading your quarterback. No, you cannot go into a combine and test the guy on when my quarterback rolls out of the pocket, do I find space and get open?
True.
That's what's so hard about measurables. And Keenan Allen does that kind of thing. All right, Jordy Nelson, Demaryius Thomas, Sammy Watkins, Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks, and Amari Cooper join him in Tier 3. It's a big old tier.
Yeah, the guys that I just would point
8 guys,
out
I think?
would be Allen and Nelson. These are our consensus tiers. So we had to sit down in a triangle. We butted heads over some. We had to make concessions.
We did?
Yeah, surprise. We didn't completely agree. But this is something that we were happy with. I still lean that I think Allen and Nelson belong in Tier 2, but I'm okay. I conceded that they're at the top of the Tier 3.
See, to me, we obviously concluded as a group that they were another tier later, but I can agree that Keenan Allen and Jordy Nelson, I would throw Demaryius Thomas as well, are the cream of this next tier. They are the guys that
one might argue another tier.
Right. You could say
but
that
we
they
chose
are
not to do that based on consensus.
Yeah, we try to make it as simple as
I will
possible.
say this, Jordy Nelson news coming out is really good right now. They said that if, he basically came out, was running around and said, if there was a game Sunday, I'd be playing.
I made a pretty strong push for Jordy Nelson in our league of record, and I was denied.
All right, I'm going to see if I can outdo you.
Because I'm right, man. I'm just remembering all the good times that Jordy had, and I think he'll be okay. I think he can come back from this
See, for
ACL.
you, there were good times. For me, they were torturous because Jordy would be doing nothing somehow for 3 quarters, and then 2 bombs later. I mean, 2 bombs. It wouldn't be one. It would be like a 74-yard touchdown and a 55-yard touchdown or something.
What's funny is, as a quick aside, to that exact same Jordy Nelson year, I believe, where he saved my bacon. I had this huge comeback, and I ended up winning the championship with him. And I believe it was in week 17 that he had like 2 monster bomb drops, like wide open. He was going to take it to the house like 60 yards. So there's some people who that's their lasting memory of Jordy, is him just destroying their dreams, while I love him.
All right, and there's a lot of upside guys. There's a lot of youth here. Sammy Watkins, Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper, guys that could jump into the next tier if they perform well, but they have risk. All right, Tier 4, we only have 3 guys in Tier 4, which was interesting. We labored with this. It's Golden Tate, Jeremy Maclin, and T.Y. Hilton. They didn't feel like they really belonged in Tier 3.
Right.
But
the offense for Maclin, Tate, and the look. Did you guys see this report on Jim Bob Cooter's offense that I sent you guys?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's all new. This is not what they ran last year. Golden Tate came out and said, everything I'm seeing is new. We're taking it day by day. It's all new. I think that gives Marvin Jones a clean slate in that offense, as opposed to the handicap of Golden Tate.
The offense, I would completely agree, but there's still that chemistry that Tate has with Stafford.
And so you look at values here in Tier 4. Tate's going in the 4th, Maclin in the 5th somehow. I don't know why. Maclin's my guy again this year. Unbelievable.
The dirty cake.
The dirty cake
Dirty
is
cake
back.
returns.
And T.Y. Hilton in the 3rd. Those are all good draft picks to me. Good values to me in the 4th. So those are some Tier 4 receivers. I'd love to have any of those guys as my wide receiver too. Yes. So if I was going, running back, wide receiver, running back, and I ended up coming back around in the 4th for Tate or in the 3rd for Hilton, I'm fine with it. Better yet, how about the 5th for Jeremy Maclin? That's what I'd be going for.
Yeah, it's a good value.
It's very interesting.
And then I don't think I'm going to go into Tier 5 yet, but you can check that out on the site. Starts with Michael Floyd. That's your teaser.
Ends with Doug Baldwin.
As do all things in life for Jason. All right, we're going to jump into tight ends. We know the format. There's the top and the bottom. Tier 1, Rob Gronkowski. You might have heard of him. I'm not going to stay and talk about him for a long time. He belongs in a class by himself. It's a combination of production and longevity of production. It doesn't mean he's not unhealthy. He gets banged up. In fact, they were keeping him out of drills that he's totally healthy to perform in.
I do not blame them.
Just to keep him healthy. Tier 2, Jordan Reed. We selected Jordan Reed all by himself in Tier 2. If someone has a problem with that, why are they going to have a problem with it?
The only problem I have is because I actually put me personally, not you guys, I put Jordan Reed up in Tier 1 with Rob Gronkowski. I think that Jordan Reed, if he plays all 16, that's a big if. But if he plays all 16, he's going to have a pretty good chance to finish as the overall tight end 1.
I agree, and I also agree that he's not going to play 16 games. Tier 3 is the tier to me.
So break those down, Jay. Do you have those up?
Yeah, tier 3, you've got Greg Olsen, old reliable, Kobe Fleener, my heartthrob, Travis Kelce,
Mike's
Zeus,
old heartthrob.
and Gary Barnage.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever loved him.
Gary Barnage.
The unloved.
Yeah, the unloved Gary Barnage. Those guys represent to me consistency and good values in the draft. I really do like Jordan Reed. I have him ranked higher than every single person in this tier as far as where he'll finish scoring. But I'm going to end up with Jordan Reed in exactly 0 of my leagues because I don't want to give up the round in which he's going from another position.
I'm looking at a 401 average draft position because we updated in the draft kit. He's sitting at 401. Does that intrigue you?
It does. It intrigues me. It entices me. So maybe I'll say in exactly 5% of my leagues I'll end up with him. I still don't think I would give up a 4th rounder. I mean, we were just saying, a 4th rounder is going to be a guy like in that tier of wide receiver where maybe T.Y. falls to the 401 or Golden Tate should be there. Those guys, I would rather have them than Jordan Reed, where I'm going to need more people to fill my flex and my wide receiver and my running back roles, and I can get somebody, in the 8th, 9th round. Who am I getting at wide receiver? Not someone I could just plug and play for a T.Y. Hilton or a Golden Tate replacement, but Jordan Reed to Kobe Fleener? Sure.
I'm going to get on a little bit of a tight end soapbox here.
Uh-oh.
This is an important thing to realize, and I think you guys will be on board with me with this. I was listening to an interview with Ben Watson, and he talked, the question, he's 35 years old. Why did you dominate in the New Orleans offense last year? It's because they threw him the ball. All right? Now, that wasn't his answer, but that's the abridged version. They threw him the ball. In the NFL, it is the system and the opportunity for these tight ends. Gary Barnage last year has been in the league forever. Zach Miller's been in the league forever. All right? We talk about sleepers that we like this year. Vance McDonald.
Yeah.
Opportunity. There are the athleticism. It's of these big guys at the tight end. How many times have we said somebody is super athletic at tight end and they don't pan out because they don't get thrown the ball?
We're talking to you, Jordan Cameron.
Sure. We're talking to Gates, Ladarius Green last year.
Talking to you, Virgil Green.
It is so much. I'm just realizing this about the tight end position. This is why you're going to have 5 guys surprise you every single year, and you're never going to predict it. Maybe it's Dwayne Allen. Maybe it's Vance McDonald. Maybe it's somebody in Tier 5 like ASJ. If they don't throw ASJ the ball, I don't care if he can dunk it from the free throw line. It doesn't make a difference. It's a team.
It would be a cool celebration.
And that was part of what Ben Watson said. He says, it's a team game. There's 11 guys. They said, are you going to repeat the numbers? He said, hopefully. If they, it's like, I hope so. So, I mean, essentially, that's my point about tight ends. And it's probably useless for everybody who's listening, maybe, because, how does that help you draft? But I just think that's what you're seeing. That's how a Gary Barnage can come out of nowhere. That's how Zach Miller can come out of nowhere. And that's why we say draft a guy late.
Yeah,
I think that's where it helps.
Let's take a look real quick at Tier 4 because this is, to me, the last tier of, these guys are great. I think this tier is, I am not just okay with, I'm happy with.
All right, Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Antonio Gates, Delaney Walker, Tyler Eifert, and Eric Ebron.
Now, let me ask a question for all the people who think we're fading Eifert too much. If the news out of Eifert camp comes back strong, because we know he's under the weather.
As
right
in
now.
playing all 16.
Well, as in he's ready to go for the season because it was the ankle surgery. Is that what happened?
Yeah, he moves up to Tier 3.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm
Absolutely does. Yep. Eifert is not somebody we're trying to destroy his value on. He's somebody that we're trying to
We
say,
hate Tyler.
look at all the top tight ends last year. None of them had 50 catches like Eifert did. He had 52 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, we love Eifert. Last year, Eifert was one of our most recommended tight ends to get because his value was great. Draft based on value.
So, all right, we're going to take a second. We're going to ask some questions about all these guys to Mr. Pat Mayo, the Fantasy Sports Network, who pretty much dominates year-round for that network. So we're going to talk to him right now.
You talking to me?
I've been listening to house music now for about 15 minutes because there is no other way that you can prepare yourself for the energy attack That is Pat Mayo. So the fantasy footballers are pleased to bring back good friend of the show, Pat Mayo. Welcome back, my friend. How are you doing?
It's odd when I'm not actually doing or talking about fantasy or on camera. I'm actually incredibly low energy, which is kind of strange. Maybe I conserve it all as the day goes along.
I'd say you probably burn it all out when the cameras are rolling. You're like a Tasmanian devil.
Then I take a nap, so I recharge.
Just crash.
All right, we're going to start it off with an easy one. We're looking at running backs and just some other rankings and tiers and things. But Le'Veon Bell, Pat Mayo, we have Le'Veon Bell in a tier all by himself. How do you feel about the top of the running back position this year?
I'm with you with Le'Veon Bell. I think that he's the clear number one, especially in PPR formats. Just the work that he can do, not only as a dump-off receiver, but running actual routes, like splitting out wide, getting his A-dot down the field. When you normally look at running backs and you see their average depth of target, it's probably in the negatives because they're getting thrown to behind the line of scrimmage. Not Le'Veon Bell. He's getting targeted deep downfield, so he has the opportunity for bigger plays, scoring more touchdowns through the passing game. So I'm good with him up there. I guess the injuries worry me a bit, but regardless of whether I get Bell or not, I will definitely be having D'Angelo Williams on my team, just in case.
So you're of the opinion that, if I heard you right, you'll be grabbing D'Angelo Williams even if you don't have Lev Bell, or did I mishear you?
No, that is 100% what I said. So basically, we saw what D'Angelo Williams did last year without Le'Veon Bell around. He got all the carries, he got all the targets out of the backfield, he scored all the touchdowns. I think he had 12 when all was said and done. And, he started, 9 games-ish? So I just think it harkens back to a situation I encountered a really long time ago when I drafted Larry Johnson everywhere when Priest Holmes was the starter. And then Priest Holmes goes down in like week 2 or something like that. And Larry Johnson becomes a top 5 guy the rest of the season. I think if you're going to allocate spots on your bench, you don't necessarily need to devote them to handcuffs. Just because you don't have Le'Veon Bell doesn't mean that D'Angelo Williams is worthless if Le'Veon Bell goes down. It's a great way to potentially seize an opportunity to get a top 5 back without having to pay any sort of price on it.
Sure. It's very interesting. We were just talking about that, I believe, on Tuesday's show. So let's move to a guy.
Well, let me ask you one quick question on that. Is Lev Bell your overall number one, or do you lean like an Antonio Brown or Julio?
No, I'm going heavy receiver at the top. So I haven't done my full top 300 yet, but I would assume where I sit right now that Brown, Jones, Beckham, and Hopkins would all be over him.
Wow. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in. We were talking the other day, and I had the 3rd pick in a PPR, and Antonio Brown, Julio Jones were off the board. And in a PPR, I went with Le'Veon Bell because he's so good. And I said if it was a standard, I would go with the wide receiver and Odell Beckham. The scripts
it's crazy.
have been flipped in the NFL right now.
So let's move to a guy. If you don't know Mayo and his work, Pat Mayo hates this guy. He hates him. He hates him so much that he has to have a guest ranker. We're talking, of course, of Mark Ingram. Pat Mayo, we need you on the Mark Ingram train. When will you accept responsibility for what you have done in tarnishing the name of Mark Ingram, that he might actually be a good running back?
He's not. So next. Piece of garbage.
Oh my
so how do you explain his season last year where he was, before going down in, I believe, week 12, he was a top 5 guy?
Great. No, that's fine. You can have him. I didn't have him, and I won everything.
I won everything.
Well, I won a championship with, I guess it was Tim Hightower by that time.
Tim Hightower, way better.
We're getting into the hot takes early. All right, well, then we'll jump off of Ingram. You've got Ezekiel Elliott here at number 4, which is not an uncommon spot, but you are comfortable jumping in on Easy E there at number 4. I mean, that means a high pick spent on a guy who's never taken a professional snap. So talk a little bit about your feelings on Elliott.
Well, I feel like if you want to get Elliott, this is around where you're probably going to have to take him at back end of the first round, early second. But I think he's on a tier with, and again, this is PPR. So with Freeman, Elliott, Charles, Peterson, Gurley, and I would even kind of maybe smudge LaShawn McCoy into that mix, but he's the bottom of that tier. I think you can rearrange those guys any way you want. I'm comfortable with the upside, especially with a healthy Romo running behind that offensive line, and I'm working under the impression, now I might be nuts about this, but so is Jerry Jones, so it'll work out. But you don't spend a pick that highly on a running back if you're not going to use him for, let's say, I don't know, 75% of the snaps. The only guy I'm really worried about in that backfield, weirdly enough, if his knee becomes reconstructed, it's Lance Dunbar, because he's so good on third downs and such a good pass catcher. But there'd be no point of taking Elliott if you're just going to give Alfred Morris or McFadden any carries.
So the way you were talking about that in a tier with Freeman and Charles, looking at your rankings here, so do you have David Johnson kind of as his own tier 2?
Yeah, David Johnson to me is like mini Le'Veon Bell. He's going to be 85% Le'Veon Bell with the potential to get up there. I just like the way that he is used out of the backfield. He's going to be in on third down. I guess there's a case you could make that Bruce Arians is a crazy person and he might just play Chris Johnson, and that could be a thing. But I just see David Johnson's upside in an offense that's so good that you could be potentially looking at the number one player in fantasy. And just everything that I saw from him last year was awesome. And I don't want to miss the boat on David Johnson. Like, again, these are PPR rankings. So someone like AP, Todd Gurley, they would move up in standard rankings. They would be on the Johnson tier in standard rankings, where like Freeman would fall down a little bit. But for PPR purposes, you're looking at Le'Veon Bell 2.0 in terms of what he can do statistically, not necessarily the same sort of runner.
Yeah, we definitely think he could be the number one running back by the end of the year. So speaking of the number one guy, that's clearly at the end of the year going to come from the quarterback position. And at the top of your rankings, you're bringing some heat. You're bringing some fire. We have Andrew Luck, number one, followed by Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. So we've got no Cam and no Aaron Rodgers in those top three spots. But I want to talk about Luck because he's had that one big year of over 40 touchdowns, and hopefully that was going to be a trend. He was derailed by injury, but it's possible that, considering in his other years, I don't believe he's thrown for more than 30 touchdowns. Why are you so confident in Andrew Luck being that number one guy?
I'm not.
All right.
To be perfectly honest with you. But when I look at the board, so you have Luck, Wilson, Brees, Newton, Rodgers, Brady, Roethlisberger. Those are my top 7. I think you could really interchange those guys however you want. It depends on how risk-adverse you are with Tom Brady, but I think you can fill in for 4 weeks, no problem playing the matchups, and then get a top 3 guy. And you could probably draft him at quarterback 8, quarterback 10, depending on how your league feels right now. But with Luck, I almost equate it to Bortles because I'm down on Bortles this year. I think there's massive regression coming, but I don't see Indy's defense being any better. And weirdly enough, Andrew Luck turns the ball over, getting the ball back in his hands a lot and getting his team down, so he always is throwing. Frank Gore is basically a non-factor out of the backfield. And I look at his weapons, I look at the defenses in that division, the schedule they have to play in. I just feel like if there's one quarterback who's going to take a monumental leap, it's probably going to be Andrew Luck. So just because he's my number one doesn't mean you have to draft him as the number one quarterback. He probably falls to like 4 or 5 because everyone's in on Cam this year. But I just see what he does with his legs, what he can do around the goal line. I could see his touchdown expectancy on the ground going up if he is truly healthy, which all signs point to yes. I just feel like he has the most upside in this situation where you see someone like Rodgers. That offense is very efficient. The defense is improving a little bit too. So, and that's almost the case against Bortles, where Jacksonville is better. He doesn't need to throw the ball so many times. Where with Luck, that's really the only option they have if they want to score points. So this is a pure upside play. For me, the quarterback that I'm going to end up with the most shares of, I'm guessing, is Drew Brees.
Yeah,
yes.
We agree with that. Quite a bit, as well as the Bortles regression. The numbers last year, how many passing touchdowns to running touchdowns, Bortles high interception totals. It just doesn't seem sustainable. So we have him as a regression candidate as well. Let me ask you this though: if Luck comes back, and provides top tier fantasy value, production wise, who's the beneficiary in the passing game there? I mean, what are your thoughts on Moncrief? I know you have him ranked lower. Mike is a big Moncrief guy.
Yeah, I love Moncrief. I think he's a breakout candidate this year.
But who's the beneficiary to you?
Weirdly enough, it's one of those offenses that the ball gets spread around a lot. I could see T.Y. Hilton still being the guy. I think people are undervaluing him as a very solid wide receiver, too, especially in standard leagues. But Dwayne Allen, for a touchdown candidate, if you're not going to spend a high pick on a tight end and you're playing week to week or you're playing matchups or you're just looking for someone to kind of luck into one of those Mercedes Lewis seasons where they catch 10 to 12 touchdowns, I feel like Dwayne Allen can be that guy, especially now that there's no Kobe Fleener around.
So let's move on to a guy that me and you, we talked about this last year. I don't know if you recall.
I don't remember anything, ever.
That does not shock me one bit. But Eric Decker was a guy that you loved, I loved. We pushed him hard, and it panned out in a huge way. Eric Decker was a major success for fantasy football. But it looks like you're jumping off the cliff here on the Eric Decker love. You've got him down at 35. Is that because of the quarterback situation, or is that taking into account you think Fitzpatrick will be back and you just see a big regression for Eric Decker?
No, these rankings are done as it stands right now. So right now, Geno Smith is his quarterback. And if Geno Smith is going to be the quarterback...
So why do you have him so high at 35? That's the question that needs to be asked. Because, yeah.
I just want some clarity on the situation, so I guess that's me sort of hedging against myself right now. I think even with Geno, he could be okay, but more like low-end wide receiver 3 okay. But if Fitzpatrick is there... I think he's probably at number 24, just one spot behind Jordan Mathews, one spot ahead of Steve Smith, and I'd bump Marshall all the way probably just behind Jordy Nelson.
Yeah. I think that quarterback situation makes a gigantic difference.
I do have one question for you, because this is somebody I want to take the temperature of with every guest that we have right now. I read an article by Brad Evans this morning talking about Thomas Rawls and some of his fears about Rawls. Where do you stand? You know, they drafted a couple of guys in the draft. There's, you think if there was good news, it would be out there about his recovery. And so are you worried about Rawls in year 2?
Absolutely. I have him at number 19 right now, and that's assuming that he starts week 1. I think there's a strong possibility that the more and more information we hear, the more and more negative it's going to be. But everyone's just willing to jump on CJ Prosite right now, but it might not even be him. Christine Michael's still there, and I don't want to live through another offseason of just Christine Michael nonsense. But if he's going to be in the mix, like, you might be looking at a situation where there is no lead back in Seattle, then we're all screwed. So Rawls is the candidate to have the job if he is healthy. And I think if he is healthy, maybe expect, with a bum ankle, 75% of what you saw last year. And if that's the case, and he still is getting, let's say, 65 to 70% of the snaps, 80% of the carries out of the backfield, I think he's in the RB2 discussion, but I'm not going to go out of my way to draft Thomas Rawls. If he falls to me, I think he's a very interesting gamble because of the upside. But I mean, I just look at this list of wide receivers. There are running backs, and maybe it's the way that I have them ordered. I don't know. But I don't like any of these guys.
All right, we'll get you out of here on one more, what I think is a decently hot take, a medium temperatured hot take. And you have Michael Thomas over Willie Snead in New Orleans. And Willie Snead is a guy who I like a lot, but you feel like the rookie can overtake him for fantasy value. You gotta talk me into this.
I just think they all play at the same time. And when you're talking about volume, Snead might lead in receptions. He might get up there in yardage. But I just think that Thomas is going to be an end zone threat. He's a gigantic body. We saw that Drew Brees, he likes to throw around the goal line. He gets a bit sneaky, or he hands it off to a fullback every now and then. And they have Mark Ingram, who's not afraid to twinkle toes out of bounds instead of going to the end zone. So I just think it's a possibility where if stuff jibes with him early, he can become more ingrained. And I'm not super high on Willie Snead. Plus, you look at the guy, there's no way that he doesn't get busted for PEDs very, very soon.
Oh, that's a hot take.
Just look at it. Just look up any picture of Willie Snead. The guy's veins are bigger than my legs. So I'm not a skinny guy. I got a thick base here. So those things are popping. So I just like the upside. Maybe I'm enamored with a rookie. It's not like I've ranked them super highly. I think they're flyers at the end. If you're looking for a consistent, wide receiver 4 or 5 that you need to plug in during bye week, maybe play as a flex in a PPR, you'll probably go safer with Willie Snead. But I'm going to shoot for some upside with Michael Thomas.
Sure. All right, Pat, tell the people where they can find you and find your work.
They can't. I live in a closet. If you mail me your address. I can get back to you by snail mail, and you'll get my week 5 rankings in like week 7 or something like that. I'm not sure.
That reminds me of 1994.
Yes, yeah. I'll have everything printed out on pieces of graph paper. I'll be good to go. Now, you can follow me at ThePME on Twitter. You can find me at Fantasy Sports Network, RotoExperts.com, SportsGrid.com, Daily Roto. I'm in a lot of places, although it's all the same stuff, so you just need to find it in one place.
He's all over Google. You can Google him. It's very easy.
Google is top notch for me. That's how people know about me.
All right, thank you, Pat.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, thanks to Pat Mayo for joining us on the show today. Great takes, great thoughts on a lot of these guys, the different tiers, and you can see all these on the website. Just go to the Fantasy Footballers, click on the Ultimate Draft Kit, check them out.
You're welcome that I didn't bring up my Fantasy Bachelorette team.
Yes, we are.
Thank
welcome. We are very, very thankful.
Thank
for
you.
that.
I'm dominating.
That is between you and Pat Mayo alone.
Dominating.
Well, yeah. What are you competing with?
Just like Andy is in fantasy baseball.
Oh man, how have I not got out on a?
You're a terrible person for bringing this up, Jason.
A pedestal. I remind these guys as though they care every single day. I am 9-0 on my first real. I mean, I played last year casually. This is the first year I tried to play fantasy baseball. I am 9-0
and dominating
and beating a friend.
Sounds like it's pretty dumb. Am I
right?
right?
A friend of mine. Beating a friend of mine who played for years and years and cannot stand that I'm winning, and it's so spectacular. All right. That is it for today's show. We've got good stuff coming next week. We got a mock draft episode, got some mailbag, lots of good things. Last reminder, guys.
Yes,
sound the horn one final time. Foot Clan.
Foot Clan assemble.
Let's do it. Let's close this weekend out right. Remember, hashtag TY13, hashtag Foot Clan vote. We'll get you entered for some giveaways. PodcastAwards.com. Don't forget to vote for us for the People's Choice and for the Sports and Recreation.
Every day until
just June 12th.
The 12th.
It's just 4 days more. 4 more days.
Sunday is the last one, and then we will not talk about it.
We will never mention it for another calendar year when we come in for our defense. And then we'll mention it for a couple weeks. We appreciate it. It means a lot to us. It really does. And all the support that we've got on Twitter about it is great. So that is it. I think I will bid everyone farewell.
Yeah, we'll see you all on YouTube.
Yeah, go to the YouTubes, the show after the show.
Oh, I have a taste test today.
What?
It is a taste test. So you will get to try that out.
This is great
head to head, baby.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.